Daf Ayin Vav Amud Aleph, 31 lines down. We mentioned earlier about people who got tricked with their jobs, whether they messed over the other worker or the employer messed them over with the pricing. He hired a manager, the manager said four, the manager said three. Depending on the situation is the answer to what the workers get paid, depending on what happened, what the owner told the manager, and what the manager told the workers. Okay, Pshita. Now, obviously, if the employer told the manager to hire others at three per day, and then he told them four, and the worker said, whatever your boss says, yani the owner, which should be four. They meant to say that we want to get paid higher, the higher than average, which should be four. But the guy said four. So the manager has said four, the owner said three, and they said, okay, whatever the boss says, that means they still want the four because they assume maybe the boss would have said more. Now, if the owner said four, and the manager told the workers three, and they say the whatever the boss says, which should be higher. They're relying on the manager. To say that it was really three, and therefore it should be three. Or maybe they're actually relying on the boss, which should be four. Tashma is going to bring proof. The woman told someone, bring me my get. So there's two types of shliach for get. Shliach leholacha, the husband sends a guy to deliver the get to the woman. When she receives it, she's divorced. There's a shliach kabbalah. Shliach kabbalah is when the woman's in the shliach to receive it for her, and whenever he receives it, as if she got it and she's divorced. However, over here she said, "Go get my get and bring it to me." So she's a shliach for nobody right now because she can't make a shliach holacha. She's just basically telling him, "Go be a shliach holacha for my husband." When the guy got to the husband, he said, "Your wife told me to accept it for her." He says, "Okay, whatever she says, here it is." So now he didn't make her a shliach halacha. He is not a shliach kabbalah, and therefore she's not immediately divorced. So even if he does deliver it, she's still not divorced because nobody made her a shliach. I mean, I would put from here, the husband's relying on the shliach's words. Because if you want to think that he is referring, he will have in mind the wife's words. Let at least be a shliach halacha for himself, just like the wife said. So we see that the fact that he can't be a shliach halacha means that he relies on the sender of the shliach, which is over here is the woman. So to over here, by the worker, they're relying on the manager. Tomorrow says the Maravashi, no, not a good proof by the get. Actually, you can't compare. If the opposite would have said, his Kabbalah gitik biyashliach Kabbalah, ve'ishtecha amra lehavel giti, and the guy told the husband, she wants me to be a shliach holacha, v'hu amar hilach k'mosh he says, okay, whatever she said. She is divorced when she delivers it. Alma, we see adibura didah kasamich relying on the wife's words. Or maybe she's divorced. Maybe he's just relying on the shliach's words. But over there, our case, the reason why it's not a good get is because mishum da'akash shliach because the shliach incorrectly followed instructions. Because he says to the husband, I'm a shliach kabbalah. The wife wants me to pick it up for her. But I won't be a shliach holacha. So you're basically telling the husband, I'm not going to be a shliach holacha. That's why it doesn't work. And no question unto our. So yeah. Ibat a different answer. Hai Tana chazru nami hitu karile. Our Mishnah, when it says that they backed out, it means they tricked. So even in general, when they back out on a deal, we said backed out instead of tricked. Over here, though, when it says that they refused to work, it means also that they backed out, and therefore that's why there's only complaints because you can't force them. Tanya, right? Says when someone hires workers, and they would trick the owner, which means they backed out. And the owner who hired them backed out. Says tricked. You can only complain. When does that apply? Where the owner did not, where the workers did not travel yet to where they had to work. But if let's say they arrive, the drunky drivers arrive to pick up the merchandise and there's nothing there. Probably no or they went to hire workers. The workers came to work the field and they saw it was already done. Now tell them to pay full wages. It doesn't apply for one who comes to the location loaded with the grain is not compared to comes empty, or because and one who performed labor is not compared to one who's inactive. Meaning, in that situation, if a person is now traveling without anything, now he's traveling back, for example, he traveled there with a wagon, now he's traveling back, he doesn't have to carry anything, therefore he's not getting paid the full wage, he's getting paid for carrying an empty wagon. Yeah, it's much less. But the rumors that I said, when they didn't start working yet. But if they already started working and then they backed out, then you have to evaluate how much labor they did, and then the owner must pay the difference. How does that work? Let's say he hired them to cut a certain part of the grain, part of the field for the grain, and for 2 silaim, which is 8 dinarim. So it's basically a quarter each. So eight quarters for 2 silaim. Let's say they cut half of it. Or he hired them for 2 silaim to weave a garment. And they only weaved half of it. That what they did. Now let's say, so now they're basically getting paid 50%. What if they did 50% and now the work, instead of being another 4 dinarim, it'll not be worth 6. So now the price of labor has gone up. He still can give them 1 selah 4 dinarim to finish it off. Or if they want, they can complete the work and collect their full wages. But if they only have a value left of 1 selah, 4, he can give them 1. We're going to explain everything in detail. Rabbi says, they can evaluate for them whatever needs to be done left. For example, there was 6 dinarim work left. Now tell him shekel, you can give them a shekel, which is only worth 2. So therefore, either they complete it and then they collect their full 18 dinarim. But if it's only worth a selah, which is 4, he should only give them a selah. All these questions back and forth, the first and second cases seemingly don't make sense. We're going to go into heavy details. Why it's obvious or why it doesn't make sense. But when we say that applies is b'davar and nabud, where it's not going to be lost if it's stopped. Avodah says it's going to be lost. So and you can hire someone else even at higher expenses to replace them, and the first one have to pay back those wages. Let's say yes, or he could trick them. He tricked them. Even though I told you I'll pay you it for 1 selah, go pay 2, and then he doesn't have to pay the second one. He could just say, sorry, I needed you guys to finish it off. But how much can he spend of the workers' wages in order to replace them? Until 40 or 50 zuz, which is dinarim per worker. So basically, it's a lot of money, basically, because you're desperate to finish off this job, and therefore you're able to hire someone even at a high rate. That only applies when there's nobody else to hire at the standard price. There's other people who are higher. And the other guys, the original guys, say, okay, we're walking out of the job, but hire these other guys. And no, that's a legitimate thing. He can't force them, and he can only complain. If workers arrive at a location, there's no work for them that day, he has to pay them their full wages. Now, he was in the middle of talking, and then he stopped. Someone jumped in. Rav said, whoa, Habibi, Amar, my uncle. He said, Illu anna havai, if I was the employer, I would have paid them just to be inactive, idly working. You telling them to give full wages, they didn't do anything. We said, no, you forgot the second half. One who comes to a location fully loaded, full truck, full grain, is not compared to one who comes empty. Therefore, they don't get the same amount as if they did the job. Rather, he's idle. It says, it's true. That's what he was going to say, but he didn't finish off the braita. Okay. You really see that they did finish, and he still said that. And Rabbi was saying, my uncle said he have it on if I was the employer. I wouldn't pay anything, and now you're saying you should pay them as an idle worker. But 1 second, it's against Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia says you do pay them. It's not a difference. It's not a question. Rabbi Chia said where you have to pay nothing is where they already saw the land, they inspected the work from the night before. And since they saw the field from before, they realized there's nothing to do. There's let's say it can't grow anything, and it's pointless. So therefore, since they already inspected it, it's not their fault. It's their fault. They came still. So therefore, they don't deserve any money. Had the law said in another case where he has to pay them for the times where they didn't inspect it, and therefore the employer should have inspected it first. One hired workers to dig ditches. Then rain came and filled them with water. Now you can't dig. If they inspected the land before, it's the workers' loss because they saw it already. But they didn't inspect it. The employer loses the money. The pay them as an idle worker because he should have inspected it before hiring them to dig. Someone hired workers to draw water and wash his field and irrigate his field. Then it rains. It's the workers lost because you can't predict that. If the river overflowed and filled it, the owner lost. He has to pay them as an idle worker because he should have known that since the river overflows, it's his problem. Hired workers to draw water, and in the middle, there was no more water. The river ran out of water. So now what? Halfway. It doesn't usually stop to the body makes the worker's problem. The owner could not have predicted that. Avid de Pasig, but if it usually does stop, Ibn Mata, if they are usually from that town, therefore they should know that it stops. See, the problem is their problem. La Ben Mata, but if they're not from that town, it's the owner's problem because he should have let them know that the river might stop flowing. Amarava, Ayman de Agar Ogre Levita, someone hired workers to do a certain task. The Shalim Abit de Pag de Yaman happened to be that they completed the entire thing by midday. You hired a handyman to put stuff all over your house. Okay, I'll pay $500 for the day. Handled it. He finishes by 1 o'clock. It's 4 hours left. So if he has other work for him to do that's not as hard as in the beginning, he can give it to him the rest of the day. In Ami or they consider even if it's equal difficulty, he can do it. Because as long as you're not giving him extra that he didn't sign up for. But if it's harder work, you can't. And then he has to, if he has nothing else to do except harder work, he has to pay. Say sorry, the guy can tell him I'm out, and he has to pay him full wage. Why has to pay full wages if he only worked half a day? At least pay him the rest of the day as an idle worker. It's referring to a place where they become weak if they don't work. There's people of mechoza. Therefore, if they sit and do nothing, they become weak because they're usually carrying heavy stuff, and therefore a day off is not worth it for them. Amar more. You have to evaluate. We said it earlier. If they evaluate according to Nakama, you have to evaluate what they did. Okay, how do you do that? Hey, I'm going to say the labor work has gone up at 6 instead of 4. Natan himself only gives them 1 selah, 4. So my we see from here that even though a price has gone up and they did the 4 and they're getting paid for 4, that means we see that the workers have the upper hand and they're getting full compensation. Let's say the guys finish it, they get paid the regular 2 slaim that they agreed with. Shita, of course, that was their job. Let's say the price has gone up since they originally agreed it, and now the second half they accomplished it. So the workers had already left. Then the guy convinced him to work. You might think maybe we thought that when you were coming back to us, you meant that you're going to pay us at the higher new rate. Therefore, they're not teaching you that you pay him the original price because you could tell them, I made you accommodations, I hired you originally, I'm not paying you extra money. Selah. We said earlier the original work was at the value of the selah, he could give them the selah for what they did. Shita, of course, that's what they agreed upon. Mar says, sorry. No, the price of labor has gotten inexpensive. A bunch of migrants crossed the border, now it's cheaper. And therefore, therefore he said, you know what? I'll pay you extra. I'll pay you $1 on top. Also, then the labor had gone up. They come now they should have been, say, instead of 4, now it should be 5. Say, okay, you're going to pay us an extra $1. Therefore, you should pay us 2 extra because the price has gone up. So let's say the price was 4, went down to 3. They agreed in giving 4 even though it was 3, and now it's 5. So they're trying to tell him, you promised $1 on top. Now that the dollar is now that our job is worth 5, you promised $1 on top, it should be 6. The Gemara says, the Amar Lahu, the employer can tell them, no. Gemara says paying you an extra one. That was when it wasn't worth that much. But now that it's worth it for you, I'll do it. Meaning, the fact that it was 3, I said I'll make it 4 to entice you to do it. But if it was already 4, then I wouldn't have offered you 5. I wouldn't give you that extra one. So therefore, it works. Rabbi Yosef says, you have to evaluate them how much still needs to be done, and that's deducted. If it was worth 6, only give them 2 dinarim. Because he sees from here, it doesn't hold that the workers have the have the lower hand, meaning if he backs out, he doesn't get paid the best way for him. Next. If the guy finishes it, if they back out, they can come back to complete it, and they cut their full to slime. Chita, of course, if they finish it, of course they will. No, because maybe in a case where the labor price has gone down, the and the Balabait backed out, saying, you know what, I'm not hiring you guys no more. But and the workers came and convinced him. Is that the opposite we had earlier? I'm not saying you might think, I'm not saying the employer can tell the workers, I rehired you guys thinking that you'd be on the lower labor price. No, you wanted us because we do superior work, and that's why we are doing the work for the original price.